welcome the ones that just joined. You're on mute, but we'll unmute you later on. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about these three great trails you've never heard of, St. Johns County edition. The three trails are Moses Creek Conservation Area, and this is mainly a hiking trail, although there is kayaking and canoeing in the creek itself, and it's a beautiful area for that too. The second trail that I want to talk about is Bartram Canoe Trail, and that is along the Durbin Creek in northwest St. Johns County, really pretty much mostly in southwest Duval County. It's right on the county line there. And that's mainly, well, that is a paddling trail. It is in the middle of a creek. So it's kind of a little known gem. Well, I'd like to talk about that tonight. And the third is a bicycling trail. So we're talking about three trails and three different ways to use a trail. And the bicycling trail is the Palatka-St.Augustine Bike Trail, which goes from Palatka to St. Augustine almost, at least goes to 95. So we'll be looking at that. And here's a map of our trails that we want to talk about. And so the Bartram Canoe Trail, which is Durbin Creek, is up here, like I mentioned, in northwest St. Johns County, southwest Duval. And the Moses Creek Conservation Area is down here along close to the Matanzas River. The Moses Creek feeds into the Matanzas River, which is down near Crescent Beach and Matanzas Inlet. And the final one is right here, which is the St. Augustine Palatka Trail. And that goes along State Road 207 pretty much. It's not in the road, it's along the road between 95 and just, East Palatka, just east of the river. So those are the locations of the three trails we're going to talk about tonight to help you see what might be nearby to you. So first I'm going to talk about Moses Creek. Moses Creek is a beautiful area. It preserves one of the few remaining undeveloped tidal creeks in North Florida. It's called Moses Creek, and it's a tributary to the Matanzas River, as I mentioned. You can see it on this map here. And these, one of the beautiful features of this are these preserved beautiful tidal marshes off the coast of the land here. And these have served as an important resource to Native Americans who occupied the area thousands of years ago. It's for fishing, shellfish. They really lived off of this ecosystem here. In the 1980s, the St. Johns River Water Management District purchased this land in order to protect the water resources and the ecological functions that they serve. And so the best hiking is along this white trail and yellow trail. And I'm going to show you a few pictures of that. So there's two trailheads. One's right here, that's the west trailhead, and one's over here. Hope you can see my highlighter here. So that's the east trailhead. And so you can do either one. You could park, I've had an outing for our Sierra Club where we parked a car at each end, and then we did this whole loop in here between the white and the yellow trail. And so if you go out the white trail, there are these two spurs. One goes out to this campsite, and that's pretty nice because you get your first peek at the river and the inlet to the creek. And then if you keep going on that white trail and you go out this second spur, and then you've got a really beautiful overlook to the estuary and marsh, and it's a beautiful marshy, grassy area. We'll show you some pictures of that soon. And then you can keep going and then, go through the different ecosystems. There's really 7 different separate habitats in here. There's you first start out this pinelands you walk through, and then you've got of course, your estuarine marsh, and then it has a beautiful Florida scrub along the way, along this first section of the White Trail. So we'll be looking at that as we go along in our presentation. Sorry about that. Okay, so when you first proceed along the White Trail, you go through this beautiful pine flatwoods, and these are mostly slash pine, but it's a beautiful example of a flatwood with the very open canopy, and you've got mostly pine trees in there, pretty undisturbed, and then your typical understory of your saw palmetto and your your marberry and the wiregrass. So even though you have these roads through it, they left most of it pretty much undisturbed, and it's been preserved really well. So a beautiful example of a pine flatwoods. It's just really pretty in there. Then, as I mentioned before, the next thing you come through is this beautiful Florida scrub, which are kind of rare. This is a coastal scrub. A large scrub are found in the center of Florida along the ridgeline of the peninsula, and they're really ancient beaches. So this is an example of that, but it's probably a little more recent because it's closer to the coast. But it's a very sandy soil with these really unusual small brush-like trees. So you've got 3 or 4 different species of oak that never grow much taller than a person. And you've got special sand pines that are also very small. You've got other vegetation like these Lyonia up in the right-hand corner. So it's a very interesting landscape and quite rare. It's definitely rare outside of Florida. There's really nothing like this anywhere in the world except for here in the Florida scrub. So that's interesting to check that out if you like that sort of thing. And each of these habitats has its own species of animals that run through it that are endemic to that area. And then, as I say, there's this beautiful overview to this gorgeous estuarine marsh. And so that's right off of that White Trail that I showed you before when you get to the end. So you could probably walk out there. I forget the mileage. It's probably 3 miles or so. You could do an out and back, or you could do the complete loop like I mentioned. I think it's about 7 miles. So next, we'll talk about the what's called the Bartram Canoe Trail. It's Durbin Creek. Again, it's up here in northwest St. Johns County. Actually, most of it is in Duval, so I kind of lied. I wanted to include it in St. Johns County because I live up here in Northwest, and it's very close to my house, and it's a beautiful area to go canoeing and kayaking on. And the launch is actually just barely in St. Johns County. And so we'll talk about that. So it was a launch that was underneath a bridge that was the dog track, racetrack road. And so underneath that racetrack road bridge, there was a put in where you just had a little dirt road and you went down and you were able to be right next to the surface of the water and put your canoe or your kayak into the water. And that's where we launched from. So that was kind of over here somewhere. And then they put in this new shopping center called the Pavilion at Durbin Park. And so this whole area got super developed, and now there's all these homes and developments all around here, and they widened that road, that racetrack road, and they re-engineered the bridge a bit. So they took away that put-in spot. But when they did that, they promised they were going to put a new launch where we could put in somewhere else. And they actually came through and they did it. So now where it is it's right across from this this new shopping area, the Pavilion at Durbin Park. There's a Publix, and it's in the Publix parking lot. So you kind of go to the left of the Publix, way to the side of the parking lot, and you'll see a parking area with a few parking spots just for this boat launch, and you'll see this boardwalk that I'm going to show you in a minute, and that's what you take down to the creek. So it's really nice. It's really well done, and I'm so happy that they lived up to their promise. Here's another map of the trail itself. So it begins down around in here now, and then here's the river. I'm sorry, the creek that goes all the way through here. You'll see up here. Let me get my highlighter out here. This land here, you may recognize. All this area here is all part of the Julington-Durbin Preserve, which you may have been to and hiked through. There's 10 miles of hiking trails through here. And one of those trails is a side trail. It's called the Red Trail. It goes out and you come to a body of water. Well, that body of water is Durbin Creek. And it's historic because this was where it was the old historic Sampson Road, which was the main way to get from St. Augustine to Mandarin at the time. And so it was the old road, and it came over the creek here. And as you paddle through, you can see where that is, and you can see the trail on that side. On the left side, you'll see kind of a, I don't know, pavilion of some sort of a band shell type deal right on the river. And that serves the folks that are in this new community here called Celestina. So if you keep going here, this is 3 miles, 3.6 for, when you get to the end here, you merge into Julington Creek. So maybe some of you have paddled Julington Creek. Well, they meet here, and then further along, they become just one big wide Julington Creek, which then empties into the St. John's River right by San Jose, by State Road 13 there in Mandarin. So,
can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
The pavilion that's there, does that mean that all that land along there to the left is going to turn into houses? So the creek's going to be lined with houses?
Yeah, yes and no. You can see where the roads are now. This is a pretty current map. So it isn't developed out into this area because this is all wetlands. This is you'll see in a minute. Good question, but these are really wetlands that are protected, thank goodness, because they'd probably find some way to fill it and build houses there. But they are protected wetlands. They have to do some mitigation if they do.
Yeah, we went on a native plant hike. We went out there and we're shocked to see that gazebo. Yeah, and we're told it was for the new development that was coming. So we pictured the whole thing was going to turn into houses.
Yeah, I don't think so. But we got to keep an eye on them. You're right. You're right to ask the question. But at this point, it's just like many of these developments have these sort of nature walks and preserves, like Nocatee, for example, has some beautiful trails out there, where that's what they're kind of, I don't know, the developers sort of know they have to give a little back to the community now, or they won't get their zoning approved. So some of them are pretty nice. And again, they have to do some mitigation if they're going to build on a wetland. So it would probably prohibitive for them to do extensive development there. And there's quite a bit of barrier there. So I think it's just a boardwalk out to that pavilion. I haven't done it from the development side. I've just seen it from the creek or from the trail, as you mentioned. Okay. Anything else to mention along here? Anyway, I think that's about it for that map. And now we'll take a look at some of the beautiful.
Well, how far is it? If you launch at Publix and go all the way down and come back?
If you go all the way down, that's about 7 miles. Yeah, here's 6. I guess about 6 miles to the junction. of Julington Creek there, where Clark's Fish Camp is. So that's a long paddle if you're going there and back. So typically I'll go down here to, that trail to the preserve and then come back. That's about 5 miles round trip. So here's the new launch area. So as you can see, really well done, really beautiful boardwalk here. One thing I should mention is that it is very long. So if you have a heavier vessel, you may want to bring some trolley or something to roll it down. Mine is only a 14-foot kayak. It's a little thing. So I just sort of huffed and puffed it down there, but it's probably 300 feet to the water. So you're gonna be walking a bit. But other than that, it's just gorgeous. And it goes through the beautiful forest, the wetland forest here that lines this beautiful creek. And as you can see, it keeps going and curves around, and then it goes down this metal ramp, and then you have the dock where you can launch. So it's a pretty nice facility. I mean, they did a really good job. And then you get on the creek itself, and it's just like another world. It's just beautiful in there, very, very secluded, very quiet. Just many species of very mature, beautiful trees. There's ash, tupelo, some palm trees in there, and then just some unbelievable specimen cypress trees. And here's one example of one of these cypress trees.
Oh.
They're just so old, and they just tower over the creek, and they're just beautiful, beautiful habitat for woodpeckers, other birds. You can see some of this vegetation here in the creek. Sometimes this gets quite thick. The day I went and took these pictures, it was no problem at all. Sometimes it's a little thick to paddle through some of this. Other than that, it's just a beautiful paddle. Here's some more pictures of that cypress. Okay. And now with our third trail is a bicycle trail. And it's, again, down here in southwest St. Johns County. And it runs along State Road 207. And it's a rail to trail. So it was originally a railroad, and they've repurposed the railroad bed, tore up all the tracks, paved it, and made it into a bike trail. So it's a really nice trail for biking, for walking. There are folks that go out and just hike on that trail. A lot of bicyclists. It's really getting popular. It would be perfectly accessible, I believe, if you wanted to go out. You had a wheelchair or a scooter where you wanted to get out and just get in nature. It's really smooth, really well done. So you can come down 95 and let me get my pointer here. Come down 95 and you can get on right here at 207, this Vermont Heights trailhead. And they have a bathroom there and facilities, and you park your car, plenty of parking, and then just take off on your bike and just head southwest and just go all along this trail. The day I did it, I went all the way down to East Palatka and back. It was about 30 miles or so. Just a beautiful, easy round trip on a bike, but you could go as far as you want and turn around anytime you want. And so this trail connects to another trail. If you go across the bridge, go across the St. John's, go through Palatka, there's another bike trail, which is a Palatka to Lake Butler trail. And that goes for 47 miles. So if you're really a serious bicyclist, you can connect up to these other bike trails. And then this one is also part of a 260-mile St. John's River to Sea loop, which goes way down, I think, around DeLand and over by Daytona and all the way back up to St. Augustine. So that's quite an ambitious route there. Most of it's finished. Some of it's just still, in construction or development. So what does that look like? There we go. So as you can see, there's a lot of amenities along the way. You've got benches to rest on. There's a canopy across most of the trail, so it's nice and cool. You're not in the blazing sun the whole time. Then you've got informational kiosks along the way, which are really interesting because there's a lot of history down here as well. So this is a stop along the way called Armstrong Park, and it runs right through the park, and you can just get off and have a little shade here and eat a picnic lunch or use the restrooms, and then continue on. Then, as I said, they have these informational signage along the way. They have a lot of these kiosks with the maps and more history. And this trail goes first through this community called, Armstrong. It's an old traditional community from the turn of the 1900s, the turn of the 20th century. And it was an African-American community. It was built around a sawmill and then became a farming community. So this is a very old community where people have lived for quite a while, and it's not so populated anymore, but it was pretty thriving down there when it became a railroad. They put a railroad through it. And so a lot of the people who were building the railroad ended up settling there and living there. This is an informational sign about the railroad camp there. So it's really kind of interesting to think of this area became such a thriving agricultural area as well as forestry, where the pine forests to the west became sources for lumber and turpentine, and they were loaded onto the trains and brought up to St. Augustine, and there was a connecting train up to Jacksonville. And of course, Henry Flagler, who kind of brought St. Augustine into the modern world and Providence, he was very interested in this, and he built these railroads or bought the railroads. And he encouraged a friend of his, Mr. Hastings, to develop agricultural property out in Southwest St. John's. And that was used for his hotels to provide the food for his hotels in St. Augustine. So he had kind of this whole system figured out. And of course, all that food was brought in to his hotels on this railroad. So it's kind of sad in a way that the railroad's no longer there, and all we do is drive around in cars, and 207's all backed up all the time, and 95 and all, but at least we get to use it as a beautiful bike trail and kind of go back in history and see some of how it used to be and how it still is. Because you go by, now here's some more information about the train schedule, see how it went to Jacksonville, went to Palatka. They had a post office down there in Armstrong. And then you come out past Armstrong into the farmlands in Southwest St. Johns County, which most of you are probably familiar with. This is a very big potato growing region. It's very famous for potatoes. And you ride your bike right through these fields. And here's another stop along the way, again, where you can rest, you can get shade, so I think there's restrooms here as well. So there's just a lot of amenities along the way to make this a very interesting trail. So it's just a really nice 30-mile round trip. And so that was the third trail I wanted to show you. So I hope you're able to get out and see some of these since they're so close, particularly if you live in St. John's, but even in the surrounding counties, it's not too far to get to. And go out here on your own. We can't bring you out there right now as Sierra Club, but it's certainly a nice, healthy way to enjoy a day and get out and experience the nature that's still all around us.